a couple of questions that were submitted. There they are. So if anybody wants to give us some examples of what's happening out there on the industry side or the district side, I mean, we can talk about it some more, but if nobody wants to talk about it in this room, then basically you need to talk to the district construction engineer and explain why you think your payments aren't being, or see why your payments aren't being made the way that you think they should be. And if you can't get resolution there, go to the regional engineer and contract administration. Anybody want to jump in on that? So if any district folks are in here, you may want to look at that and see if that's an issue with some of your projects and you're not aware of it, or if you are having some disputes with contractors about that where you guys aren't agreeing, then maybe you talk to the regional on your own outside of what the contractors bring to us. Right.
Next. What is the plan for future Marshall mixes?
Materials, take this one. Currently, the DOH plan is to move towards a balanced mix design approach with our asphalt paving designs, which is basically a performance-based mix design process. Therefore, we only need to have one volumetric mix design process to start from. Marshall will be slowly phased out over the next couple of years while balanced mix design moves in. Now, that being said, Marshall is not going to go away tomorrow or the next day or even the next year. You know, there's still going to be several jobs in the pipeline as this goes on. But yes, the idea is that we are phasing these mixes out of our system. Vince, you want to add anything?
Nope.
I don't think. Any questions about that?
Sir?
Does that include maintenance pickup as well?
Vince, you want to take that?
Well, the first place we're phasing it out of is the design directive, so I would assume that the first place you'll stop seeing it is in contract work. From there, we'll probably move to the specs, and then we'll stop having mixed designs being accepted, Marshall mixed designs being accepted through the typical mixed design process.
And my guess is, yes, it probably will eventually get down to that level.
You have an estimated time frame on that?
Sooner rather than later. I'm going to guess 2 or 3 years out. I mean, we're just now in the process of buying equipment, training our folks, and rewriting our specs and DDs to kind of transition into it.
All right, moving on. What does the state think about the new maintenance PO contract? Any changes coming for the next contract?
All right, I'll take this one. This is what I received from Operations Division, which is a new name for our maintenance division, for those of you that don't know. So anything that was maintenance division is now Operations Division. So I talked to those folks, and they're the ones that provide some information for this answer. So they're telling me they're in the awarding process for that contract, and the things they're changing is they're switching super pave 37.5 millimeter to 25 millimeter, added super pave 12.5 millimeter, added shoulder stone placement. The vendors are bidding by county instead of district, and require written verification from the vendor that they are receiving the order and plan to do it. So that contract is not really, I don't handle that contract in my division, but it's Operations Division, so that's what I can tell you about it. If you have more specific questions about that, feel free to ask them right now, and we can try to tackle the question.
Jason, I think the answers there are pertaining to the asphalt, new asphalt laydown purchase order. This question was geared toward the contract that was bid last year for the first time in a couple decades, that contracted out by PO maintenance work, patching, ditches, shoulder work, ditching, pipe work primarily, tree trimming, That was a new contract last year.
Okay, well, we missed the mark on that one, obviously, but we do have some district folks in here that maybe they can contribute. Anybody in the back row over there, I see some district engineers in here. You guys use that contract at all? Anybody want to add something?
Well, sure, sir, thank you.
All right,
We successfully used those contracts in District 4 this year and had good results with the PO patching contracts. We did not have favorable results with the PO ditching contracts. So,
I know it should have left already. No, we used those contracts in District 4. We had great success with the PO patching contract. The results, it was more expensive than our forces doing them, but it was economical enough that we could use them. And if we have the need again this year, we're going to use them again up there. As far as the ditching contracts, I hate to say, guys, but the quality of the work wasn't there, and the cost was 5 or 6 times more than our forces doing them. So as far as the ditching POs, I don't think we're going to entertain using those unless it's a have-to case.
all right, thank you. How about District 9? They had any use of those contracts?
Didn't use it.
Okay. Any other districts in here from the maintenance or operations side?
Well, can we get any feedback from industry about their experience with using?
You promise you won't let Darby hit me?
I promised about Darby, but anybody else in the room, I'm not so sure about.
Well, we do take exception to the comments from management and Darby actually about the quality of the work. I mean,
This panel up here cannot speak for Darby, okay?
I mean, we're disappointed that somebody did some work that wasn't acceptable, and we would hope that the inspection side would have addressed that. And then we'd like to talk to with you all further about it, because we are hearing different things and seeing different things.
the inspection side did talk to the contractor about that, but when you're not willing to put the grader in the ditch
To pull the ditch and listen to the inspection side, because I got the inspectors right over here, it doesn't do a whole lot of good, guys.
Everybody, if you turn around, we got Parsons, Clayton, round one.
Any comments on the patching though? Any from industry, I mean, or the feedback back, guys, and this is good.
We did some in District 2 as far as the tonnage and the amount laid per day. I've never seen the end of county people do like that. Production, and I've never heard anything but thumbs up on the quality of the work as far as the laid in.
can you repeat that question?
I didn't hear it from you all.
So we did quite a bit of work in District 2 as laydown POs. And the tonnage that we were laying per day, I've never seen the state even come close to matching that. And that has to be some kind of savings right there, just the time out on the job. I'm not sure what this gentleman's referring to as far as the pulling the ditches. But only thing I can talk about is the actual laydown, because that's what we did. And it seemed like the production was there, and the quality of work was, as far as I heard, the quality of work was fine.
I think what we did patching, we used the ditching.
I definitely agree with you on the patching aspect of that, sir. The quality was there, good, it's radar force up to do other things. We cut off a lot of roads, and I know in Vaughn County, Harrison County, that needed patched, and it worked out really, really well. And the cost per unit, the way we track things versus the way you guys do per ton, wasn't off the charts more than what we paid. So we could do it ourselves. So it worked out pretty good there. The ditching was a lot more expensive, and like I say, the results just weren't as good.
Don't pay that.
Any other discussion on that? That was good. I was trying to find a way to Ask a question back there in the back row, that got it out of the way early, so already always get the conversation.
All right, moving on. Are we moving away from getting paid on the P card for purchase orders, and if so, why?
Okay, again, I will answer this one, even though this is not in my, wheelhouse or my expertise. As we say, I'm construction, not financial budget, and we don't care about all that stuff, even though we get roped into it all the time. So operations division, again, helped me with this. Said, yes, we're moving away from the P card. Any purchases over 50,000. If it's over 50,000, it would be the EBT or check. And why? To help manage cash flow. So that's what I know about that. So anybody want to have anything to add to that as far as the question or otherwise?
There'll be a dollar amount cut off. Is that,
50,000 is what,
we had heard 150,000. I didn't know.
50,000 is what they told me. Again, I'm not, you know anything about that, Taylor? And so if Taylor would be my person most knowledgeable as far as knowing what's happening on that side, but he didn't know anything different than that either. So operations is telling us $50,000 is the threshold there. Okay, moving on.
When repairing base failures on concrete, what is the purpose of spraying tack on the edges of the excavated patches?
Well, the easy answer for that one is, tack is meant to get bond, okay? Now that could be affected by the type of repair, either asphalt or concrete. Now, there's currently 2 details that our designers use that are in our typical sections and related details book. Click the next slide. Now, one's the pothole repair. Now, granted, it's called pothole repair, and you can see this one does call for the tack. The majority, at least I find the majority of our repairs that we do out there kind of fit this typical more so than the next one that shows up. Even though it's called pothole. Here's the base failure repair detail. But as you can see there on the left, it's for the way it's drawn, it's kind of for pretty much longer repairs and stuff. And I think the reason they're leaving the tack out on this one is because it's going down into the sub base and everything. Now, that being said, if it's in the plans to tack it, we want it tacked, and for some reason, the project manager has designated that. If it's not in the plans and the inspectors are out there asking you to tack it, again, that's something you need to talk with your district construction folks there on the project and in the district, and then kind of like the first question or second question, whichever one it was, elevate that up if necessary. Does anybody want to share any additional information?
All right. Does a road that is scratched before it is paved last longer and get smoother results than a road that is not scratched?
If anybody in this room knows me, they know that I don't like scratch. We feel that it adds a weak, poorly compacted layer that results in a shorter life. Now, we do understand that there are some non-standard situations where it may be required and would be beneficial, but they should be rare and handled on a case-by-case basis. Our current philosophy is that fine milling or other types of milling in general would provide a better bond between the existing surface and the new asphalt. And these types of milling are detailed in DD 644. Questions on that? Other feedback?
Keep it clean.
Hey, what is the cost per ton for a PWL job compared to the cost per ton of a regular overlay job? Is the price difference, if any, worth it?
take this one as well. We feel that PWL helps provide better quality workmanship that's consistent throughout the project. We do feel like that this gives us a longer lasting product as well. And based on our current data, we are seeing this, and we are attributing that to the hard, successful work that industry is doing. And honestly, we have seen a lot of more innovative things come into play with PWL projects that we probably wouldn't have seen otherwise. PWL is bid by the square yard, and industry likely has a better idea on the true costs if we want to talk cost per ton for PWL. So if anybody's done those calculations and happens to have that in their back pocket, we'd like to hear it. All right, thank you.
What are the responsibilities of all these consultants on jobs? We oftentimes have multiple inspectors and are probably overstaffed. Another question, why are there consultants with plans when the plan is not running for the day?
Okay, I'll take that one. Consultants are a direct extension of the DOH staff, providing quality control and quality assurance. The district construction offices are managing the staffing levels related to their projects, including these consultants. You got questions or concerns about that specifically? I think you can talk to the districts and ask them if you feel like the way these questions are related, I assume it's on the industry side, you feel like you're being over-inspected, or you feel like there's wastefulness going on, I guess. So if you feel that way, maybe you need to talk to the district and relay your concerns. If you don't feel comfortable doing that, maybe you can talk to the regional construction engineer and contract administration. But contract administration's involvement in these consultant contracts is that we're facilitating getting the contracts together and having them in place for the district's needs. When the districts come to us and say they're short of staff and they need help on these projects, then we implement the contracts we have in place and get them the people they need. It's up to them to manage the folks and get them in the right place at the right time. So I don't really have more to add to that unless somebody else wants to jump in on that, or anybody from the district that is using consultants, which is most of you, wants to add to that. There's probably some consultants in here as well that could maybe add to it as well. Anybody that asked that question want to elaborate on it? Okay.
Next. Why are we required to submit yearly quality control plans with basically the same information for individual projects? Can we not save time on both by submitting a yearly plan to each district and then submit new ones if there are changes? The district could reference those if needed for individual projects.
This is a very good question. You are not required to submit yearly quality control plans. The official answer to this question here is by the MPs, and we spelled for the ones out that we have that deal with quality control plans. Each of these MPs allow you to submit a master quality control plan yearly, and these are approved by the district. Now, if the project intends to do something different than what's described in the master quality control plan, then they need to submit a project level QC plan, or just to address the stuff that they're doing differently. And that's all spelled out in the master, or all that process is spelled out in the MPs. Now, we are aware of some districts that require project QC plans for all projects. That's a district decision, and I mean, they're allowed to have their own processes and stuff like that. But we do give them the tools to do that. If they want to make it easier on themselves and accept these master quality control plans, they can. If they want to make it, we've created that to make their job easier, okay? So that's the answer to the question. Anybody want to comment on that? Any districts that require project control plans on all their jobs want to explain why? Or anything that we can do to improve the master quality control plan? Okay. I guess we're moving on.
PWL lab testing. Why are we testing so much in the lab when we aren't getting paid or penalized for the tests? I agree with verifying the mix, but after that, why not one random test per production day? Because we're testing so much from the road. Sometimes it's difficult to run 2 to 3 lab tests and 4 to 6 loose samples and coolers.
We're not sure what this question is after here. As you can see, some of the way the wording is, we're kind of asking questions amongst ourselves. Do they want a payment or penalty for every single test? We can't do a statistical analysis for PWL with only one data point. Digging into it a little bit deeper, the MP 40102.31 states that if the contractor desires, they may sample from the roadway along with the division sampling, et cetera, and layout testing at the lab. However, the DOH is doing all the acceptance testing. The contractor is simply testing for their own quality control. So we're not requiring a lot of the tests out there that you guys are doing. So, I mean, maybe we interpreted the question incorrectly or whatnot, but we'd like to kind of clarify that a little bit better, if anybody can.
Isn't there stuff there just these people have something keeps holding?
Silence isn't golden if you're holding it inside. All right.
25% wrap mix testing with the new Marshall testing MP. We will be testing more, so if there is a need to still have 25% wrap mixes tested like PWL.
All right. I guess they put my initials on that one. This question refers to MP 401, one of our MPs again, 40102.27, Guide for Quality Control for Asphalt Concrete. This usually includes a special provision for Section 401 where we allow an increase of reclaimed asphalt in these mixes. Dave really gave me a confusing answer on this one. And I guess the MP kind of describes some of the locations where we can do this. Now, the Super Pay 401 projects with PWL factor, 25% wrap phase 2 or the 19 millimeter will be allowed. All other projects will require one random loose roadway sample per 1,000 tons placed based on the tonnage on random loose samples. I don't know if we answered the question there, but we kind of just quoted what our specs and MPs allow. So, did we miss the mark on that one? Did you want to add anything? Dave, you want to add anything?
I'm good.
Okay.
Next. Gyration levels, to make it easier for all parties, why not adopt a single gyration level? Make all mix at 65 gyrations, that way it's less mix to design and to approve. Ohio does this already. Instead of changing gyration levels like we do now for traffic, we could change the liquid. By doing this, I believe it might fix some of the cracking problems because some mixes will get an extra 0.1 to 0.3 of liquid.
We think this is a great question. We have seen other states make this change as well, and we've also been considering it. As far as changing the liquid based on the traffic level, we already do that to a degree. It's in the 401 section of the spec book. So we're on that train, but I believe we are considering moving towards just one gyration level. And I believe that level is 65. Comments? Questions on that? All right, keep an eye out. Oh, we've got a question.
Will existing 80 gyration mixes just have to be done away with, or can you, like do a 1-quart Proctor or something to get those?
I would assume any other gyration level mixes will be phased out with this change.
Any others? VMA during production testing. Why not do away with keeping track of VMA during production? We've had a lot of mixes that run great out of the road, and for most part, good in the lab. However, there are times that we have to re-verify or make adjustments because of VMA going out, and it might just barely be out, which in turn can cause problems for field techs getting compaction. When designing, still make it a requirement, but not during production. This is how Ohio does it.
Just because Ohio does it that way doesn't mean it's right. All right. I remember when I was little and get in trouble, I'd tell my dad, well, all my friends did it. It was like, well, if all your friends went and jumped off the bridge, would you go do it too? Basically, the VMA during production testing, it controls the asphalt content. In the case of Ohio, they are likely using a balanced mix design approach or something other that allows them to take this stance. Currently, we don't have that in our processes. We are, like I said earlier, we are moving toward a balanced mix design approach. Will give us a lot more leeway in some of these things. Vince, you want to add anything?
I will say that Ohio does some things that are kind of behind the curve as well. So.
Next. Will the department be utilizing our thin lift mixes for pavement preservation in 2020? These mixes are better suited for that purpose than our conventional mixes that are being underutilized.
Basically, we agree with that statement. The DOH has a policy that preservation projects are to use alternates where possible. Primarily, this happens with microsurfacing projects. Our policy states that if the project manager chooses only to use one type of treatment, for example, no alternates or whatnot, then there should be some sort of justification should be documented and stored with the project records for review when questioned otherwise. That's been our policy now for a couple of years. But we do encourage the use of alternates and stuff like that.
Next. Some districts insert job-specific notes that are not needed or practical. For example, longitudinal joints cannot be matched at the end of every day.
I'll take that one. We don't like these type of notes either, especially if they contradict the specifications or other part of the contract. We do, whether you believe it or not, we do head off a lot of stuff before it gets out as advertised, even though I know there's still a lot of junk gets out there. You haven't seen all the junk because we do filter out some and we try to get what we can. But if something does make it out there that you think is incorrect or unnecessary, your method of getting that fixed is to ask the question on BidX, and we can try to review it. And if we agree, then we can try to get a revision made in that set of plans for that contract. So plan notes are a problem in many aspects. Again, like I said up there, when they contradict our specs. Sometimes it's the easy way out for the designer to throw a plan note in there and cover a certain situation, or sometimes they copy and pasted notes from other projects that don't relate to this current project, and we don't necessarily want that, so we do try to filter it out, but you guys are a good set of eyes, and it makes it out to bid, or out to advertisement without us fixing it, to go ahead and throw a question on bid X, and we'll try to get revised if we can. Sometimes that's not always possible, though.
Any other comments on that? What is DOH policy on utilizing PWL? I think jobs need to have at least 2 inches of material, either do fine milling or add depth for standard milling. State needs to look at potential jobs more closely to determine if they are good candidates for PWL.
So to answer the first question, what is the DOH policy on utilizing PWL? Please see our Design Directive 644 on when PWL is used. And we've got an excerpt on the next slide, Sean. This is just a brief overview, but new construction of multi-lane divided highways, overlay projects on existing multi-lane highways, asphalt paving on the NHS system, and other projects were approved by the Deputy State Highway Engineer. So there is an asterisk next to the NHS routes. It says any 2-lane highway on the NHS system requires special consideration and review by the pavement engineer at the Materials Control Soils and Testing Division. Unfortunately, this hasn't been done, and some of those 2-lane NHS routes have slipped through the cracks of this requirement. But that's the way that the design directive is written as it stands right now. Go back, Sean. So for the rest of the answer, PWL is used on all intermediate/surface courses on new construction as well as NHS routes, as we talked about. There are currently revisions in the works to establish minimum tonnage as well and minimum width. I don't think we will be moving to a minimum thickness. At least that's not in the current draft version. But if there's a really good reason to, we may consider it. And the milling we're looking at as well. Some of the other things we're looking at is not doing PWL on jobs with a whole bunch of utilities. I know that can cause some issues, or we're thinking about setting a speed limit requirement, but that may be looked at a little bit more. Any other questions on that?
If inspectors agree and sign tickets, they should not decline to pay for material later just because management doesn't want to pay for overrun.
Okay, I'll try to answer this one, but I don't really fully grasp the situation here. So if anybody in the crowd here wants to elaborate on the situation, please feel free to do so. Maybe we can try to answer it. But without knowing the exact specifics of what's happened here, I think if this is a construction contract that's the construction guys are handling, then escalate it through the district up to the regional and contract administration. If this is something that's a maintenance contract, and you'd have to go up that side of the chain of command, but I can't answer it without knowing more about it. So if anybody here asks a question, or Pat, do you know any more about it?
Can't remember who submitted that, but I'm sure they're in the room and anxious to jump up and.
Follow the sword?
Yeah.
Well, if they don't want to ask it now, they can catch me outside of this room or later on at a break or something, and maybe I can learn a little bit more about it. But if it's at a lower level and there's a dispute there, then, as any of these things, you escalate them up through the district chain of command, and then your recourse after that, if you can't resolve things, is the county contract administration at the regional, and on up through that way. If it's a construction contract, if it's a contract one of these PO contracts or something with maintenance, that's a different animal, and you have to go talk to those folks. Okay,
If there's a chance work will be performed, make a bid out for it, and if you don't use it, good examples are for adjusting manholes, water valves, and inlets.
okay, so similar to the other, question about the planets and so forth is kind of like that, but we don't like to have items incidental to other items of work when there are standard items of work available to bid on. From my discussion with the industry, I think that's what they like to see, what you guys like to see also. But we also don't want to arbitrarily put a contingency item in there for items that we aren't sure are going to be encountered. It's going to blow up our estimates and the bids are going to be out of whack. So we are looking at that before the projects are advertised. These plan notes that make things incidental, such as I've seen a lot with the adjusting manholes and water valves. We try to, if there is an item available for those, then we try to get the designer to put those in the contract. And that is a little bit of effort on their part. That's why they don't like to do it, from my perception. But, it does make things better on the tail end for us on the construction side. But if you do see this again, and it's made it through the advertisement, then ask the question on bid X. We can try to resolve it if there's time, and we can get it done. We're under a lot of tight time frames with getting these projects out to bid and getting them awarded with these bond sales. That's screwing us up a little bit on being able to go back and get revisions done. But if we can, we will do it. So that's my answer to that one.
Next. The state gives us notice to proceed. They should not turn around and hold us up so their maintenance folks can perform their work. It's not uncommon. We put it up signs and are then told maintenance has work to do.
All right, I talked to our operations director about this, and, basically, operations and maintenance and construction, we try to coordinate as much as possible. However, sometimes there's external forces that prohibit this coordination from being as good as it could be. So if it's a construction contract without the contract administration, you can look at section 1 of this 8 of the spec under delays and look for a time extension and deal with your district on that. But I think we are aware that there's some coordination issues out there, and we're trying to do better at that, but sometimes it doesn't happen. Again, to the back row back there, do you guys have any thoughts on that, or anybody else from operations or maintenance side in here have any comments on that question and answer? District 9, I don't think it has this issue, but the other 9 districts might.
Well, I think we have it from time to time. We don't live in an ideal world. We set these projects up a year ahead of time and anticipate doing that work. You get into winter and have slides and different things come up that delay the work with maintenance force is doing. We try to not get in this situation, but every once in a while you do.
You want to repeat that?
I can't remember what I said. I guess what I'm saying is we set these projects up a year ahead of time. And we anticipate maintenance forces being able to get out there and do some of the preliminary work. Of course, we don't live in an ideal world, and things will come up that delay that. So we try to keep it to a minimum, or not at all, but it does happen.
Right. It's not like we're not aware of this. Again, the external forces here is similar to what I mentioned earlier about the timing on these bond sales, when the money has to be spent and so forth. It whacks things out on the maintenance side, operation side, and on the construction side, getting the timing down. And sometimes things just come out left field we weren't expecting. Like Steve's saying, he's planning something a year ahead of time, and then 6 months later, something else has to happen and blows it all up. What do you got, Darby?
Well, I'd just like to say that District 4 is trying to get more and more like District 9 and be that prepared, but we're not quite there yet. But communication is a big thing here, guys. Communication from you guys and communication internally on our side. So we are striving to get better with that in District 4, so we're not out there. I know like this year for the tar and chip contracts, we weren't ready in a couple spots, but we just got the maintenance forces out of the way and let the contracts come on through.
Anybody else have any comments on that, on the industry side or districts?
Moving on. It would help the quality and life of pavements if the work done by DOH maintenance and advance of paving met standard specs. For example, pipe crossings.
More operations and maintenance questions. So I talked to operations division about this, and they said they've been stressing the importance for their crews to perform quality work. They say they have more districts using the type F trench related to the pipe crossings there, but not all of them are yet. As far as your paving contracts, if you go out there and you see that you feel like there's some inferior work done or you're gonna have an issue with the paving project, then since we have so many inspectors out there, bring it up to them and let them be aware of the issue. Maybe they can help get some resolutions before you actually pave it and get some of the problems solved. So, back to Darby and Steve back there, what are you guys seeing in your districts on pipe crossings or anything else? Huh?
Travis.
Oh, Travis is in there?
I agree. If you're out there and you see that there's an issue before we get it paved, let us know so we can get out there and get it fixed. We want quality work just like you guys do. It's all for the safety of the public. So your help is appreciated.
Man, let's get into Travis. It's almost like we rehearsed that and answered that about 10 times before that. All right. That's all we got on that one, unless anybody else has something.
The state going to move to use of balanced mix design.
As Ron stated before, yes, we plan to move to balanced mix design. We're currently updating specifications, materials, procedures, equipment, and training to ensure this transition. However, there's no set timetable yet for a specific implementation date. During the asphalt subcommittee meeting yesterday, Ron mentioned that this is one of those things it is coming, and we're doing our very best to make it an easy and smooth transition. I believe we're already getting, in fact, we've already had folks trained on it, and we're trying to get more training in line everywhere across the state, really. And I believe we're going to have a session on balanced mix design later today. So if you're still not sure what balanced mix design is, be sure to stick around.
Why would a state want to require a contractor to have a certified concrete lab to break cylinders? Please tell me that is not the case.
Tell me why this should not be the case. But yeah, for some reason, this has become a hot topic here the last few weeks. But basically what the issue is here is that the code of federal regulations requires that all state highway agencies shall have certified labs, technicians, equipment, yada, yada, yada. This is especially true when we are doing these tests and stuff, and we are doing these tests for acceptance, okay? In general, the contractor's role is quality control, the DOH is quality assurance, and quality and acceptance. In this particular case, we do realize that there are some contractors out there that are breaking some cylinders, taking some cylinders and doing all this. And our district folks, due to their current staffing levels and stuff, are using these for acceptance. And we can't have that. Back in February of 2018, we revised the standard specifications that's currently in the 2020 supplemental to address this. And now we're currently cleaning up our MP to kind of better detail how this will be administered. But yes, that's true. If we're using this for acceptance, those people doing the testing, the equipment and stuff all have to be certified. Any questions about that? Anybody disagree with that? Well, this isn't gonna be as hard as I thought it was.
All right. Can we have specific rules for filling the PWL court stacking? Solid filled with some asphalt, hot mix was brought in a bucket and compacted with a large square steel plate. On the upper rod that was larger than a hole. Asphalt in the hole was not thoroughly compacted aside from being made flat to the surface. Another question, can we have assurance through procedure that the holes are filled in a timely manner? I'm certain that a few spots on the ramps were never filled before the next layer was placed. Another question, can we require that no core samples are taken immediately after placement? A number of the bond cores as well as the few density cores that did not sample correctly and were taken while the asphalt was still above 100 degrees, occasionally showing patterns that look like the entire core was twisted in direction of the core drill. I don't think setting a bag of ice on the surface will affect the temperature more than 2 inches below the surface, as well as the surrounding asphalt.
We think all these are good comments about coring on PWL, and they probably should be addressed. I think they should be discussed at the next asphalt subcommittee meeting. And really that subcommittee meeting is like I said, a great place to discuss things like this, where we can, come to an agreement between industry and highways on the best way to address these sort of issues. Whether that be a spec change or what have you. And usually we can come to a good agreement there. So be on the lookout for this on the next agenda for that meeting. Comments on that?
Attaches a picture of John Crane had sent to West Virginia Paving regarding 10 lift correction factors not being needed for materials 3 inches or greater in thickness. First sentence in section 401.6 or 4.1.2 does not exist in any of our supplementals, but it needs added and the compaction forms need updated to remove the K values for 3 inch plus thickness.
There's probably a reason that it doesn't exist in any of the supplementals, because I think it's old. I think it's a draft version or something along those lines. I haven't seen the picture. But the current specification requires a K value for lift thicknesses up to 3 1/4 inch. This is not a mistake. This is in line with the Troxler 3430 user manual, chapter 4. So we're just following the manufacturer's recommendations there. Any further discussion on that?
In regards to the placement of posts and breakaways for temporary sign installation, what is the proper method for bolt pattern for attaching the upright support to the driven stub in the ground? Does the 5-bolt pattern still apply for temporary signs? 1998 standard details, volume 2 had a detail for the 5-bolt pattern as shown on the last page of the attachment to the 19 standards. Detailed volume 2 does not have that detail anymore, and as shown on sheet 2 of the attachment. Possibly no more requirement for breakaway splice devices. We'd like to get a clarification on the proper method for temporary sign installation.
And so there's the attachments that came with that question, the 1998 detail in the highlighted section and the 2019 that the person was asking about. So again, this is a traffic engineering type question. And so I asked traffic engineering, and so the question was to get clarification on the proper method. So there's the answer, and it's not clear because I read that thing. It's a pretty long email to answer, and I couldn't understand it, and I wasn't about to try to answer it in this forum. So whoever asked that question, contact Ted Whitmore at Traffic Engineering. He's the one that knows about this and can try to explain, or hopefully will explain to you what the answer to that question is, because I cannot give you the clarification you need for that answer.
Can you confirm the purchase of 8 to 10 pavers plus the number of rollers? What types of roads are division intending to use these on, and how many tons are expected to be placed throughout the state with these crews?
Okay, again, not in my wheelhouse or expertise, but I've talked to operations division and to management a little bit about how to answer this, and this is what I got. So we placed orders for 8 pavers and 10 of the large double drum rollers. We've not received those orders yet, but they should be coming in the spring. Our main intent is to use these pavers in the same manner as the ones we've rented for years and years, which would be on secondary roads. Ultimately, we will use them wherever and whenever we need in order to maintain the roads, including slide projects, bridge approaches, and other areas that industry cannot get to in a timely manner. We buying about the same amount of asphalt as we have statewide for the last few years. Currently, DOH trucking limitations restrict high volume production paving. So that's the answer to that one. That was a late question that we got yesterday or the day before. So anybody have any further questions or comments about that?
Yeah, I'll take that stab at that. Guys, I get all that right there and I understand it, but we did a lot of driving around the state, or I did. What we're paving is not what you're saying up there. We're paving 2-lane roads, 1 pool roads back in the country that the contractors can do in a much more efficient manner. And I think all of industry in here has got a big concern on what the impact is going to be going forward. Just because we were challenged to build the companies, get more crews and the whole bit. And we've done that. I mean, as far as industry, everybody's up to speed. But the concern I have is going into all these full-size pavers, rollers, and trucks, is how's that going to impact us? And it looks to me like if something doesn't come out on the bid lettings here soon, it looks like we're going to have to start backing off and laying off people. And I don't think that's what the intent of what's going on here. As far as what we were directed the last 2 years from the governor is to build up and get ready for the work. We build up to get ready for the work. Now it looks like we're going to have to back off. Just like to know, we need some better information on exactly what's going to happen with the highway department in their paving process. Because that right there, that sounds good, but that's not the truth there. You are out there paving secondary roads and a lot of roads that we pave for a living there. So.
Thanks for the comment, Bob.
Jason.
Again, that's not in my wheelhouse, but the highest ranking of management here appears to be Todd Rumbaugh. Do you have any comments on that? Hide in there.
I'll try to address this a little bit. A lot of what up there is true, and that's what the intent is. However, there are some times and instances when industry can't get to a road that we need paved in a timely manner. POs are turned down. We can't get a contract out fast enough in order to get that work. In instances like that, we do go out and we will pave some of those roads ourselves. Do we like to do that? Not really. There's other things we'd like to be doing, but you know, we are tasked at times with having to do things differently than what we've done in the past in order to achieve the goals we've been given. We are limited severely based on trucking. The amount of trucks that we've purchased is the amount we need for SRIC. That's how we base most of our equipment when it comes to on the truck side. So we're not going out buying a bunch of trucks just to do a bunch of paving. And we had looked at trying to rent trucks, but that's impossible now. You all have all the hold on all the trucks, and even rent trucks. If we tried, we can't do that. So we are severely limited. You know, my guess is probably, you know, a lot of these crews, unless they can
borrow trucks from a different district or different orgs or wherever, they're gonna be limited to probably about 250 tons of production a day. I mean, they just don't have the 2 or 3 trucks to run with these pavers in order to keep all the crews working, pulling ditches and everything else that's going on in those districts at that time. They just can't shut everything down. They have to keep going. And just about every activity we do, you know, when you're ditching, whether you're paving, you're patching, you've got to have a truck. And that's where we're limited by. Why they bought the pavers, we are spending a tremendous amount for rental. Their thought is if they buy them, they will save in the long run. It's cheaper to buy them and maintain them than it is to rent them every year. We have pieces of equipment that we've been maintaining for 40 or 50 years at this point, and are still going. So that is part of what's going on there. The rollers, we got extremely lucky when they bid those out. We did not ask for rollers that large. However, the supplier gave us larger than what was required. So, you know, we're not going to turn it down. We're going to take it, which, you know, in my opinion, that's a good thing. I thought we always used too small rollers out there, and this will greatly help us in that area. But our intent is to try to get a lot of these little slide jobs that you all don't like to go out on, you can't pull off, you can't get to when we need it. Things of that nature is what they're trying to do, or at least that's the direction I think it.
Thank you for those comments there, Todd. Just one other thing, I've been scheduling some work through Mr. Badgett there, and as far as talking about the trucks, he had around 10 hired haulers hauling for the District 3 work there, and we had to schedule plants. They were pulling so much material just to try to keep everybody going. So a lot of the roads that I drove in District 3, it was, you know, they were getting 800 to 1,000 ton a day out of those plants. And that's what I'm concerned about going forward. And to comment on us getting to the work, I think that, you know, everybody knows in 2017, the workload was thrown out to the industry. We jumped in there and we got behind on rain and all that, but we're all caught up. When I've talked to everybody in the industry, we're all caught up now. So the concern is now that we're caught up, I don't think you're going to have to worry about us not being able to get to a PO or turn down the work. So just moving forward, there's just a big concern on my side on how much the state's going to do there as we move forward.
My only comment is each district is quite different. And just because that's happened in District 3 does not mean that all our districts can do that or are even capable of doing that. I don't think you're going to find out that most of them can do that. I would probably leave that where it is. But, you know, hopefully, like I said, that's what I've been told. That's the direction we're supposed to be going. And that's all I can provide you.
Thank you. Jason, do you see many projects coming through the pipeline?
We are in pretty good shape as far as, you know, we don't have a big backlog of stuff we're putting out. We're, you know, that's being ready for that. We're pretty well caught up in an even state right now. I mean, we don't have a huge bubble of projects that we're ready to get out. I don't know exactly what's all is coming on the development side, but we have, how many projects do we have right now overall? 70 of all types that we have in various, you know, which is about what we've maintained over the past 18 months, 24 months. So we don't have a huge spike coming or anything like that. So I mean, we're getting them out probably quicker than we ever have as far as that goes. And from our side, we have, there's a lot of other pieces to the puzzle as far as getting the programming and the funding sides nailed down before we can advertise them. That may be some hold up, but I think we're pretty well where we've been as far as for the past year at least, as far as projects coming through. Sound about right to you?
As far as resurfacing projects, so far this year, I would say we've had less than 10. As far as resurfacing projects or paving projects, I know we have only bid 3 resurfacing projects this year. I'd say there's been less than 10 advertised or bid this year. There is a lot of projects in the pipeline, but most of them are slides, box culverts. But what we're seeing in the paving industry doesn't reflect a big paving program this year. And that goes along with our concern. At this time last year, there was a lot more resurfacing projects in the pipeline. We were bidding. When we hear the word about all these pavers and rollers, that just causes us greater concern because we don't see the projects being advertised.
I appreciate the concern. I understand the question. And yeah, when I'm telling you what we have in the pipeline, that's all projects. So that's just a number that I have readily available of how many researching type projects. I'm not exactly sure right now, but again, it's what we do have. We have to put it out. We're waiting on the funding side to get squared up before we can put it out. We play the hand we're dealt. We get the projects and get them out to you guys the best shape we can. On the development and programming side, that's another entity that might be able to answer your questions better about the intent of volume of paving projects coming out. And when they're coming out. Anything you want to add to that, Todd? You paying attention still? You want to dance around that one too? Pass down with the mic, you don't have a choice.
The only thing I'll add is, as I realize you all are waiting on the spring paving projects, and right now there is a bunch of them that are ready to go. As Jason alluded to, the funding hasn't been approved for them yet. As soon as that finally gets, the final code gets put in place, that wheel will turn and you'll see several lettings that will have quite a bit of spring paving projects come out.
Anything else on that?
Well, I can say I thought for sure we were going to get a mic drop at some point in that conversation.
So that was the last of our standard questions, the ones that we received ahead of time. So does anybody else have any other questions or comments while we're on here? Lloyd?
I'd like to chime in on a little better note than that. I'd like to thank industry for all the work they did in District 4 last year. We had a record year paving in all the counties up there. They had a lot of improvements, and if it wouldn't have been for the hard work and working together, we wouldn't have gotten all that done. So I'd like to thank you guys.
Thank you.
Was that Darby?
Yeah. I would like to talk to you after this is over.
Jason, I've got one for you, and people text me a couple of questions, but there's some rumors about the future changes to the use of DocuSign. Can you give us any update on that?
Yeah, I probably could give you a little bit of knowledge that I'm not aware of all the details, but DocuSign is something that we, as an agency, started picking up sometime last year, and it kind of caught wildfire, and everybody loved it, and maybe got a little bit out of control. One of the things that contract administration wanted to do specifically was our contracts, construction contracts, handle them all through the beginning to end through DocuSign. We ran into some snafus with trying to figure out how to handle the bond forms and the ceiling and all this kind of stuff. And we're getting to the point where we think we had that figured out, but then We had a directive come down a week or two ago that said that we were gonna stop using DocuSign agency-wide. And I think we were allowed to use it till sometime, maybe the end of March, middle of March. So the word has been out that, and a lot of the consultant contracts as well, or almost all of them are being done through DocuSign. So where it stands now is that, the way I understand it, that we are to stop using it by the end of March, and we're gonna get back to the way we were doing things, depending on what the scenario was before. However, there is still a group of people meeting to try to develop a plan, maybe for some utilization of it going forward, but I'm not exactly sure what that would be. So as it stands right now, officially, sometime in March, we're gonna be not using it unless something else happens to this other little group that's working on it.
Was there a reason given why it didn't come up in that meeting with surety industry? What's happened that caused the decision to drop the juice, do we know?
In one word, I would say confusion, and that's all I would say about it. I don't think people understand what's going on with it, and hopefully this other little group that's meeting can undo the confusion, and maybe we'll continue to use it in some capacity. But I don't know the specifics of why.
Okay. Anybody else? It's a great opportunity to get some answers to things that you've wondered about, or questions you have, or complaints, suggestions.
Does Ohio use DocuSign?
We've got some people here to probably answer that question.
I was really hoping they did.
I know we've got people concerned about that issue, about discontinuing its use.
Yeah, we do too, on our side, and people are really loving it, and it's making things a lot more efficient. So hopefully we can get it resolved.
Anybody else?
Bob, you got anything else on your mind? Roger, you're awful quiet back there.
Trying to be quiet.
Anything? You want to comment on that other issue? No?
Yeah. Save it for later.
All right, you guys made mention that contractors are turning down purchase orders, not getting contracts done. It would be a big help to industry if you wouldn't wait till middle of May to dump a bunch of purchase orders out, want them done by end of June. Same thing, middle of September, want them done by October. Now you're charging liquidate damages, so that's why you're getting those turned down. If they come out earlier, we can plan and schedule and get them done.
Yes. All right.
Yes.
District 1 has adopted the policy that we send out a purchase order. The contractor has 5 business days to decide whether or not they want to do it. And when we send it out, we have here's your 60-day completion date. We give 60 days for the contractor to get the work done. So, for instance, and I'm going to back Todd, I know it's not normal. But for instance, we had a purchase order that had a bridge weight ton limit. Those contractors in my district turned the job down. If we would have had the smaller trucks like the state has, then the state can pave that road. So that road has been 2 years without getting paved because we haven't had the trucks or the paver to do it. So that makes sense in buying a couple trucks. It's places where y'all wouldn't want to go. But as far as District 1, you have 60 days, and that should be like plenty of time. And we've had issues with our maintenance crews that, oh crap, there's pipes that need replaced. Can we extend that for even further? So that's the policy that we have adopted. It seems to work well. I mean, Chet and Bob haven't killed me yet, so. And they've met our guidelines, and they've done really good about meeting that 60 days.
Thank you.
Some of them are holding
Any other questions, Pat?
So is there anything on concrete testing? Lisa?
I would like to know how long they're gonna give us to get our lab certified. Are you gonna, how long are you gonna give us to get our labs certified?
Currently, we've been talking with CCRL, and they said we can, if that, you know, they can have them all certified by June or July. So the big holdup there is the amount of labs that they need certified and their current schedule.
So Ron, rather than getting on a individual request, are these folks going to be able to get on the circuit and get them done when they come through? Is that like we do AMRL?
Pretty much, that's the way it'll work. Now, we have a meeting next week with CCRL to kind of nail down some of these other questions we're being asked, and how we want to implement this totally. But yeah, that would be the ideal situation.
Anybody else before we wrap up this session, and then we'll reconvene promptly at 10 a.m. for the conference. And if you haven't registered yet, please stop outside and pick up your information for that. Anybody else? Going once? Going twice? Hey, gentlemen, thank you all so very much for offering this conference and doing it in conjunction with the paving conference. I think it works out great. Very informative. Thank you so much.
Thank you guys and all the hard work you guys do.
He's sitting there. Good. No one guess.
Hey, Hal, Scott.